Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of Down But Not Out, the show where founders tell their real life stories of entrepreneurial resiliency. I started doing this show after my one company, VisitorQ, was dealt a death blow by Google that almost led to us losing all of our revenue and all of our clients. And we would have gone out of business if it wasn't for our team's resiliency, determination, and hard work. You see, I love a good underdog, so these stories resonate more with me than the $1 billion exit or the story of how your company IPO'd. These are stories of grit, meant to inspire you, the listener, to keep fighting. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we will have our backs against the wall multiple times throughout our journey. So let hearing about others' tough times be your fight song, be your hoorah, and that thing that gets you out of bed on those tough days. This episode is brought to you by my company, VisitorQ. Identify the anonymous companies visiting your website so your sales team can follow up with them. Visit visitorq.com today to start your 14-day free trial. So, without further ado, let's get started on episode 1. Now, I thought it'd be good for episode 1 to do my own journey, do my own near-death experience, my own time that I was down but not out. And who am I? Well, my name is Nick Hollinger. I live in London, Ontario, Canada, and I started a company by the name of VisitorQ that does IP address reversal to identify the companies that are visiting other companies' websites. And we sell this to a few thousand companies across the globe so that their sales team can follow up with those leads and hopefully close new business. We've worked with some great companies, some larger names like Microsoft and Jones Lang LaSalle, and then we work with some smaller companies as well. We started it was probably about June of 2017 that we finally registered the name and started building out our software. And at that time, it was just myself and my co-founder, Taraz Zubiak, that were working on the company. And Taraz was building out our MVP as I got other things ready for our launch. And we were able to launch a beta we actually launched an alpha first with a few hundred testers in about September of 2017. And then in December of 2017, we launched our full beta and opened it up to a few thousand more testers. And after that, and after some feedback, after they broke the system, we were eventually ready to launch into our full paid product in April of 2018. And this is being recorded in, March now of 2021. And so about 3 years after the launch of our full product. And our Down But Not Out story happened in February of 2020. And I remember that day. Like no other. Very cliche. I remember it like no other. But it's absolutely true. February 5th, 2020. I just came off a dry January. So I was feeling like $1 million, getting more sleep than ever, feeling great. And I get into the office. That morning, I had shared an article on LinkedIn or a post on LinkedIn that talked about how to become a Forbes 30 under 30. I looked at all the stats from previous years and came up with this is how people become Forbes 30 under 30 because it was of interest to me. That's something that I wanted to do. It's something I still want to do and something I'm working towards. And I just thought it was ironic that right when I shared that, this is what my day turned into. So I get into the office. I'm sitting there and I'm working away on something. Don't remember exactly what it was, but our one marketing manager, who is also in charge of customer support, starts sending me messages, or maybe he turned around, maybe he was working from home that day, I forget. But he says, hey, our clients are complaining they haven't seen data in their dashboard for like 12 hours or something like that. And because we were built on top of Google Analytics to provide our service, we were used to delays in their APIs. And that actually might be a good time to pause and get to a bit of filler to explain where that issue came from. So as I said, we do IP address reversal to identify companies visiting other companies' websites. How we do that IP address reversal previously was we had to use Google Analytics. So we would integrate directly with everybody's Google Analytics account to provide our service. And we did that via their APIs because it was much easier to integrate with Google to provide the service than trying to build out our own Google Analytics alternative. So yeah, that's the little bit of back filler there. So I'm sitting there at my desk. They're saying, hey, we're not getting support requests, or we're getting a bunch of support requests about not getting data for 12 hours or something like that. And we were used to a delay of 5 to 6 hours at most from the Google Analytics APIs. It was out of our hands. We couldn't do anything, but that was a normal thing that we were used to. But 12 hours was way too long. So I start looking around and I message our lead developer right away. And I say, hey, like, are you seeing anything on the back end? Where is the issue here? What can you tell me about what's going on? As I kept looking on the front end to see what I could see to multitask, to tackle this in multiple different approaches. And he went looking through and he said, we're still getting data back from Google Analytics. So I don't see where the issue, and he started looking at other areas where there might be issues. And I start digging around into actual Google Analytics on the front end to see, okay, what does the data show on Google Analytics in our system? And I'm in there and I'm looking at the reports that we usually get. And I noticed that there's 2 fields that Google previously supplied to its users and were previously available in the API, because we got about 10 different fields from Google Analytics. What you did on a website, the pages you viewed, and then a network domain and a service provider, and so on. But I'm looking at this network domain and service provider report, and it's coming up with, what do they say? They say not set. That's Google's classic, like, we're not going to tell you what this is. They always do this. Hey, you want to know what keyword someone used to get to your website? Not set. Google's not telling you that. They put not set when they're trying to hide that data from you. And all the power to them. That's their platform. They own that space. Let them do it. That's on them. But it was never not set before. I've never seen the service provider network domain report, the 2 fields we absolutely needed to provide our service, come back as not set. So I became alarmed and I start looking around through other reports, not noticing any changes there. So Google's not broken. I was hoping Google Analytics was just broken, not the case. So I start looking on forums. I start Googling, like, hey, network domain service provider missing, yada, yada, yada. I come across a forum. It was somewhere in a Google Analytics forum. So Google owned the forum where people could ask questions, like a community little section for everybody. And people are also mentioning, hey, I haven't seen network domain or service provider come back for a number of hours. It's all coming back as not set. And I'm seeing post after post of people confirming this. And then I get a little alarmed. So I message our developer and I say, hey, are you not getting these fields back? You're getting everything else other than these fields? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, that's going to be a problem. That's not good. And I was holding on to, I guess, some dumb optimism that they had made a mistake, because I'm a big fan of Google still to this day. Can't hold it against them. They usually tell you when they're going to sunset something, when they're turning off a product, they're making a change that's going to break something. They're usually pretty good at telling their clients. I've seen it multiple times. Hey, we're sunsetting this. We're getting rid of Google Plus. No one really cared, but they told everybody they're getting rid of Google Plus. So I held on to some optimism. No, they would have told us if they were getting rid of those 2 fields. And I call our rep at Google and I say, hey, like, we haven't seen this field, what's going on? And obviously they're not going to know right away. Google's a very large company. So they're not going to be able to go, yep, we removed that this morning, yada, yada, yada. So they have to ask a few friends of coworkers and work through the Google chain of command to see what's going on here. And the next thing I know, we get an email back from Google and say, yeah, those are removed. They're not coming back. And I remember the weakness in my knees, the feeling in my stomach, and like the pure anxiety. Reliving this right now is a bit of PTSD. And this hurts because we were at a few $100,000 in reoccurring revenue. We had, I think, 5 or 6 employees at this point. We were growing 400% year over year. We were on a really good trajectory to do 7 figures in 2020 and really get up there in reoccurring revenue. And now we were back at 0. Without those 2 fields in the Google Analytics API, we were screwed. We were completely out of business. We didn't have a service to provide to our 250 clients that some of them had prepaid. 30% of them had paid for a year. So that means we owed them money. In order to shut down, we would have to refund them or go bankrupt. So I'm sitting there thinking and just going through all the scenarios in my head. And luckily, for the first few days at least, I had this killer drive. It just clicked in. It was like a fight or flight, and I stepped up. And I was like, this is time to fight. I've been in flight mode. Don't get me wrong, but this, I knew what was coming out was fight. So I rationalized. I sat there and I said, okay, what are our options? And I came up with 4 different options. We either shut down and walk away. We try to sell our client, try to sell our client base to a competitor or someone else that wants to buy our client base for probably nothing because they know we're screwed. They're not going to give us a good multiple on revenue that doesn't even exist at that point. And actually, one of the competitors did message us in the middle of this and asked to purchase that client base, but we never went through with that. The third option was to, okay, we have a bit of money in the bank. We have more debt than we do money. Let's try to pivot and try to build something else. But that would be incredibly hard to do, as any entrepreneur listening to this can attest to. Getting product market fit to begin with is next to impossible. Pivoting in the middle of a crisis to try to get product market fit, next to impossible. And the fourth one was, okay, we have to rebuild what Google Analytics was providing us. And to give a hierarchy, it pretty much starts with Google Analytics telling us these are the service provider, the network domain of the companies visiting this website, the pages they viewed, the amount of time they spent, the source and medium, and so on. And then we take all of that, we clean all that data. So we still have a bunch of IP that just is below Google Analytics. We clean that, we process it, we filter it, and then we display it in our dashboard or via our APIs or marketing automation platform integrations to show to our clients. So we still have a lot of IP and great stuff that we've built. It's just Google was that first plug that we needed. And it was removed. So the fourth option was to, hey, if we rebuilt what Google Analytics was providing us, then we should be in a good spot to make a recovery from this. So we weren't absolutely screwed. We had options. So I take these options to our co-founder, Taraz Zubiak, who was our CTO at that point, and more of a fractional CTO than anything. We had our own team of developers that were working on the product, and he had his other businesses. So he was focusing on the other businesses, and that was always the agreement. So I took it to him as the second largest shareholder and the technical co-founder, and I said, hey, we have these 4 options. I presented him the options, and I was in fight mode at that point, so I knew we were going with number 4, and I was going to convince him to go with number 4. But Taraz is a fighter as well, and he said, there's only really one option there, so we're going for it. And we agreed upon that would be the approach. So the next thing I did was I brought our team together and I said, guys, this is it. This is the end game. We have no other option other than to rebuild what Google Analytics was providing us as quick as possible. Otherwise, we are completely out of business. To put it into some context, we had about, I think, 250 clients at this point. None of them were getting data. A lot of them check their dashboard every day to see what new clients visited their website, what new companies visited their website. They get emails every day that show that. They're not getting any of that. So they know something's wrong. Every minute, every hour that goes by with no data showing up, they know something's wrong. So I said, guys, we have to rebuild. And if we don't, then we're out of business. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know I made it sound as dire as possible because that's what it was. I made sure they understood that this was the ninth inning, step up to the plate or we're screwed. And I'm going to be honest, I've never been more proud as a leader than I was that day, because I was able to rally our troops to step up and fight with me. And after getting them all rallied up and telling them this is what we're doing, we laid out our tasks of how to rebuild this component. And it might sound easy to some, but some technology enthusiasts out there understand building a JavaScript tracking script and tying it into an existing system isn't easy. And to put it into perspective for everybody, this should have taken us 3 to 4 months to build this replacement for Google. And we had negative 24 hours at this point, 16 hours at this point, negative, because we had already gone that long without showing data to these clients that we had, to what we've built over the past 2.5 years. And we were able to rally our troops, get them ready to go, and lay out an action plan of these are the tasks that need to be completed in order for us to build this and to replace Google and to survive. And to fast forward a bit, we started building it out. The next day, we had developers and our lead developer working 20 hours a day to try to push out a replacement for Google in a time where we didn't lose all of our clients. And speaking of our clients, we originally, once we saw and this is common, whenever we see there's a delay in data that's abnormal, we put out a notice to them on the dashboard that says, hey, we're experiencing an issue with data time coming back, latency. And that was normal. So they expected that. But this long wasn't. So we put that notice up until we figured out what happened. Once we figured out what happened, we sent out an email to all of our clients saying, hey, Google made a change in the APIs that prevent us from using them moving forward. We're building out a replacement. You'll have it hopefully in the next few days. We apologize. You'll be refunded for any time missed plus some. And when we sent that email out, I think it was either the next day or the end of the first day, once we actually figured out exactly what was happening in our strategy, we locked the churn notifications for anyone in SaaS, the cancellations, I'll just say that, were just pinging, just going and going and going. And I don't blame clients. I don't blame our clients for leaving us when that happened. That makes sense to me. But all that was going through my head while that was happening was, okay, we're still not back at zero. This is what we'd worked on for the past 2.5 years. We went from 250 clients. We might go down to 10, but at least we're not at zero. We're still above zero, which is good. Fast forward to about 3 days after this had happened, we're building it out. We're still losing clients like crazy. We're refunding them, not charging them for this time that they don't have data. And the weekend approaches. And I know the weekend's a crucial time because clients aren't online on the weekend. We're B2B. We're strictly B2B. So clients aren't going to be online and checking if they're missing data and canceling on us because they are. So I know the weekend is when we can make up time for the lost data while people are enjoying their weekend, we can be building out our script, right? So, but our team has weekends off, just like every other B2B company. They have weekends off, they have families, they've got stuff they need to do. So I sat down with our team and our lead developer predominantly, and I said, like, we don't have an option here. We need these 2 days to make up for it and launch Monday or Tuesday. Otherwise, we're not going to be in a good spot with our clients. We're going to keep losing. We're going to keep burning clients. And I think we lost about 5% of our clients at this point. And again, I made it sound dire. I leveled with them. I told them, like, this is it. We're going out of business unless we can pull this off. And they agreed. They agreed to work through it the weekend. And our lead developer mostly was the one crushing it out, the 20 hours a day, working on the weekends. Everyone jumped in, though. Everyone jumped in and helped. I won't discount that. And over the weekend, we were able to put together something that's mostly usable. We pretty much went from having an established product, something that was good, definitely past the MVP stage of your first launch, to pretty much having an MVP again. We had to replace a major source of our data, the initial source of our data. So when we relaunched on that Monday, after the weekend, we were pretty much back to an MVP, and we cut some stuff that we didn't need. We didn't have source and medium, and we didn't have some other fields. We didn't have the ability to control your time zone, which we lost clients over, believe it or not. We were missing a lot of stuff because we had broken a major piece of our system and put in this hacked together solution. We launched it Monday and started testing it out, and then put out a notice to our clients that says, hey, you can now see data again, but you have to add this tracking script, the visitor queue tracking script, the new tracking script, to your website, to the header of your website. Because previously we just used Google Analytics. 98% of websites have the Google Analytics tracking script on their website. So that prevented us from having to add a tracking script to their website. Now that Google Analytics is gone, we have a tracking script that needs to be added to every one of our clients' websites. And when I sent out that email, ping, 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 all the churn notifications again of people upset that they had to add this tracking script, or just noticing that they weren't getting data. They didn't see my previous emails, and so on. But we were able to keep about 80 to 85% of our clients, which again, it hurt. It really did. But the thing I kept telling myself the entire time was 80% is better than zero. Anything at that point was better than zero, because you were pretty much at zero. Don't forget that. You were pretty much at zero. And even though it only took 5 days, those were 5 or 6 days. Those were probably the most sleepless, stressed out times of my recent history. They were brutal. I think the first 2 days, 2 or 3 days, I had that fight and I was ready to go. But once my team picked up and didn't need me to have that fight on my face and showing at all times to them, I was drained. Like I kind of realized what had just happened. I almost lost 2.5 years worth of work. I almost lost a few hundred thousand dollars and 250 clients. Everything I'd worked on, everything I dreamed of was gone. And once that clicked in, a bit of depression, the feeling of just pure anxiety at all times, not sleeping, just kicked in. And I was able to work still, which was good. I could work through it, but I couldn't show optimism. It was very hard for me to show optimism. I could fake a smile, I could push through, but for those few days after that initial piece of strength, it was very tough to show optimism. As I said, we launched our script. We were good to go, but it was an MVP script. So we kept losing clients. We weren't adding as many clients in after. We were missing a bunch of pieces. And after that 5 or 6 day ordeal, we progressively got better, but it probably took us 10 months to fully catch up. And we're just now catching up to where we were previously. So this has been a 10-month ordeal, a 10-month down but not out story, give or take, where we were growing 400% year over year. And now last year we grew 30%. Now I will say that this was February of 2020, and everyone knows what happened in March of 2020. So it was almost a 1-2 punch. Google hit us, and then COVID-19 hit us. But that's business. That's life, really. And it's probably not going to be the last time that happens to us. So we lost about 20% in the ordeal. We're up about 30% in 2020. And in the first 3 months of where we are now in 2021, we're up already 30% in 2021. So we're now getting back to that growth trajectory. We were at about five employees before. We're at about 9 now with full-time equivalents and so on. So always good to hear those numbers. Always good to hear that fighting back side of stuff. I just want to touch on a few points that I'm going to be asking my guests on this show. The one was considering quitting. And I don't remember considering quitting. I remember it sucking. I do remember it sucking and that pain. And like I said, this is almost reliving it just hurts to bring up at times. I think it's a great heroic story to share and something that might inspire somebody that's going through something similar, because these are the stories I love to hear. But I don't remember considering quitting. I remember it sucking, but I don't remember considering quitting. I've never been a quitter. I will say that. I don't remember anything that I've really quit. I always stick it through. I always fight. I've always been a fighter. I've always been able to step up there, and not a great fighter, not physically, but if you're pushing, if I'm getting pushed mentally and physically, I'm gonna fight through it. That's just kind of who I am, and something that I've always had with me. That's probably what got me through it, was the fact that I'm stubborn as good hell. You could ask my fiance and my friends. It could be the dumbest challenge. It could be the dumbest competition, but I still want to win. I'm still stubborn. And stubborn gets a bad rep. It really does. Like, a lot of the best accomplishments was because someone was too stubborn to give up. There's times you can be too stubborn. If you're not admitting you're wrong, okay, fine. That's bad. Take it too far, yeah, absolutely. If they can prove you're wrong, give it up. You're stubborn in a bad way. But if you're so stubborn that you're not giving up, even though the odds are completely against you, like in our case, like in many of the other stories you're going to hear from this podcast, I already have some great people lined up that I'm looking forward to talking to, then stubborn's a good thing. You got to consider that. Stubborn's a good thing. And then lastly, what I learned from this experience, I just want to say, and I will mention this before I get to this other part about what I learned from this experience, that I shouldn't have built on top of someone else's platform. Everyone's going to say it. Any of the good entrepreneurs out there will go, well, you built on someone else's platform. They can make changes. That's your fault. You should have had a replacement ready. And you're right. We should have had a replacement ready, but we didn't. We were chasing growth. We were hitting 300, 400% year over year. You're in that position. You're going to be like, okay, I'm going to pause my investment into our marketing and feature set that's going to keep driving growth to build this contingency plan that's going to take up 2 to 3 months worth of my developer's time. I don't know if you're going to do it. If you are, good for you. But I wasn't willing to do that. I was willing to keep growing and running that risk. I always knew this could happen. This wasn't a complete shock that it could happen. It's the fact that it did happen and Google didn't tell us. And it hurt probably more than I was anticipating as well. So yeah, if you're saying out there, you should have known it was going to, I knew it was going to happen. It could absolutely happen to anybody. Building on top of someone else's platform, it could happen. So what I learned from this experience is, if you are building on top of someone else's platform, have a backup plan or be okay with the fact that they could drop you any day. Either build that backup plan that we probably should have had ready, but we didn't, or be okay with the fact that they could drop you one day. Mentally prepare yourself for that worst case scenario because it will likely happen. If you're built on top of someone else's platform and reliant on their APIs or for them to drive your client growth, then that could change in an instant and your business could be thrown through a loop and you could be on down but not out. Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing more down but not out stories with you guys in the future. Cheers, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching episode 1 of Down But Not Out. We just finished editing, and it turns out that Sony cameras turn off after about 20 minutes or so of video. So I hope you liked the animated version of me. Hey Siri, remind me to buy a Nikon today at 6 p.m.
Okay, added.